Chapter 44. Day of Remembrance. Kai waited impatiently for his family to arrive. It had been a month since he sent the letter and 2 weeks since he received a reply back, letting him know they were coming to visit. Akane slept on the front counter of Trika's inn, obviously more relaxed than Kai. He closed his eyes for a few minutes, letting the time pass until he heard the front door open. "Kai!" yelled a familiar voice that was full of energy. Like a speedster, a small bundle of energy crashed into him with such force he had to take a step back. "Oomph!" he let out. Arms circled around his chest, and a pair of golden eyes filled with life and vibrancy stared into his. "You miss me that much, Squirt?" "Yay," Ariel sniffled. "The number of chores I have to do have increased since you left." She gave him a small smile. "Well, someone has to curb your energy somehow." He gave her a smile. Kai watched the rest of his family come into the inn. Everyone had shown up except his older brother, reunited after what felt like 5 long months. Not even letting him finish his hug with his sister, he felt a second pair of arms wrap around him. "My son," his mother said softly. Kai felt at peace. It was easy to forget all his troubles when he was with his family. Peeling himself off the two, he noticed his father and younger brother Jacob stood off to the side patiently. Jacob merely nodded at Kai, too embarrassed to greet his brother. Lydia appeared last, looking tired, not bothering to get through the mess of humans in the entryway. She just waved to him. Human mortal. Human mortal. Human foundation level 67. Ariel and Jacob were both in the mortal realm since they had yet to turn 16. "I'm at a higher level than Lydia now. I guess she doesn't do much hunting as an enchanter. And Jacob still has 2 more years. Kai wondered if Jacob had slain any monsters in the forest yet. To his knowledge, at the time he left for the academy, his brother hadn't yet killed any monsters. His father's boots made the wooden floor creak as he walked over. Placing a hand on Kai's shoulder, he gave him a once-over and nodded. "Not too bad. You're advancing quicker than I thought you would." Kai frowned, recalling the recent traumatic forest events. A month had passed since that day, and although it had been very beneficial, it wasn't something he wanted to experience again so soon. From nearby, he heard his mother greet Akane. There had been no surprise laced in her voice. Either she knew Akane had joined him, or they had deduced Akane joined him after so long. "You didn't say how long you were staying in your letter," he asked his father. "Not too long, a few days at most. We're here for the Festival of Remembrance, and because a certain someone made his mother worry," he said the last part amused, then leaned in and whispered, "But it's mostly because of you." Kai had the decency to look guilty. Although having his family visit was the best unexpected outcome for not sending letters home until last month. Behind him he heard, "Trika, look at you, you have wrinkles now. And you haven't aged a day, you freak of nature." Kai saw a smile peeking out from Trika's aged face. The 2 ladies hugged and started whispering so quietly that Kai couldn't hear what they were saying. Kai, Ariel tugged on his sleeve, grabbing his attention. "I want to see your school." "Later. I'm not even sure if you're allowed inside. How about we all have some lunch?" "Trika." His mother cast the inn owner a glance. "Fine. I was just preparing it now," she said. Suddenly she froze. "Wait, how many foxes did you bring? I might not have enough food prepared." Her eyes looked haunted, as if she was remembering something. Her body began subtle trembling. His mother laughed. "Only Sigma, and of course Akane, who is staying with Kai." Next to Akane was the larger fox, Sigma, who had remained quiet during all the introductions. Whereas his counterpart, Akane, had her stomach growling for the last hour, and it had only been 4 hours since she last ate. Her stomach was a great mystery, absolutely unfathomable. Good. I might have enough to serve the rest of the patrons after all," Trika muttered to herself as she vanished behind the curtains. All of a sudden, Trika came running back, grabbing onto his mother's shirt. "Wait, no, not Sigma. You did this on purpose." Her eyes were downright fearful. "Please, Rachel, I don't want the guards camping at my door for months again." Tears began forming in Trika's eyes as she shook her head fiercely. "The guards wouldn't leave until you moved out," she cried. "My gods." Sigma made an old woman cry. and Kai was certain this wasn't the first time. Grabbing Tricker's hands, his mother held them in hers. It's going to be all right. Sigma promised he wouldn't raid the royal pantry again, or all of the other stuff they alleged but had no proof of. His mother's eyes shifted away guiltily, giving Kai an idea that most of the accusations were in fact true. Akane stared in amazement at Sigma, who sat with his chest puffed out and had the proudest damned look on his fox face. Kai's back chilled when he saw Akane's eyes shift to him for a moment. "Don't you dare, Akane," he warned, knowing she was getting ideas. He knew it was a losing battle when Akane licked around her mouth. The seed had been planted. "Fine," Trika hiccuped. "You better pay. I can't afford to stay open and feed your damned foxes." As she went behind the curtain again, "Thank gods I prepared for this." Sitting down, Kai enjoyed the relaxing meal, though the other patrons learned the true terror of multiple foxes competing for food. Everyone watched as Akane and Sigma devoured food meant for the 20 patrons, and then casually signaled for seconds. As the competition fiercely raged, Akane proved victorious when Sigma collapsed into a food coma after 2 hours of constant eating. A bedtime story was born that day of the foxes of gluttony who would eat little children who misbehaved. "How did it turn out like this?" Kai muttered to himself. In front of him, his sister, Lydia, and the 12th prince of the Ashbourne kingdom, Nicholas, were shamelessly flirting. It hadn't even been 5 minutes since they had met up with his family. When Nicholas found out Kai was going out to the festival, he brazenly invited himself. After introductions were given, in which Kai noticed Nicholas pointedly avoided introducing himself as a prince, his parents left unexpectedly, only telling their children to have fun at the festival as they were going to have a date alone, leaving Kai, Lydia, and Nicholas to babysit the other 2 children along with Akane, who stayed with them. But now, Kai had most of the responsibility for babysitting, while the 2 in front of him flirted and paid no heed to those behind them. "You enchanted that yourself?" Nicholas leaned in towards Lydia. He was holding her wrist as they walked down the street, examining a green band with silver lettering inscribed around it. "That's amazing. The inscriptions look like a work of art." There was a faint blush on his sister's face. "Thank you," she said softly. Kai rolled his eyes. This was not how he foresaw today happening. On his side, Jacob pointedly ignored the 2, keeping his eyes trained on all of the stalls and decorations around. While Ariel was staring at the 2, her face made up in disgust. Akane whined softly in the arms of Ariel, although Kai wasn't sure if it was because of the flirting, the way she was being dangled from Ariel's arms, or all the food around them, so close and yet so far. Turning onto the main road, the group was heading towards the central plaza. "What should we do first?" "Akane wants food," Ariel said. "She always wants food. Besides, Akane just had a late breakfast 2 hours ago." The crowd was dense on the main road. Throughout the crowd, Kai saw numerous guards spread out among the citizens. The general air of the crowd was very cheery and joyous, the opposite of what he expected from a nation at war. Remembrance Day was a holiday for the celebration and remembrance of humans' origins. Kai wasn't sure how he felt about the holiday. Earth always had more importance in his first life, but now it seemed like a myth or legend that parents told their children until they passed down the Earth tales for generation and generation. The group slowly approached the central plaza. A huge crowd had circled an empty podium, set in the middle of the square. It looked to be made of ash stone. It was as if one solid rectangular block had been constructed in the square. How do they dismantle something that looks fused together? "Kai, how is the academy going?" Jacob asked as they waited with the crowd. It seemed like there would be a speech happening shortly. How to answer that? It's had its ups and downs. I've had moments where I really struggled and others where I thrived. I'm sure it's different for everyone, Kai said, keeping his eyes on Ariel, who couldn't seem to stand still. "I see. You didn't say much of anything in your letter," Jacob pointed out. "Well, you know how Mom is." "I didn't want to worry her," Kai said. "Are you still planning on attending the academy?" "I'm not sure anymore," Jacob said oddly. Growing up, Jacob had always emulated Kai and their older brother Garen, training with the sword and the way they acted. He seemed like an impressionable younger brother who wanted to follow in his older brother's footsteps. Now he seemed to be branching away from that path. As an older brother, Kai was happy to hear that. "Why is that?" he asked. "It's complicated," Jacob blushed. Could it be? A few minutes later, one person began pointing toward the sky, and then another, until many were all looking at the sky. Above him, Kai could see nothing at first, except the enchanted fake lights covering the entire city. A few seconds later, a silhouette appeared, followed by another. They quickly descended into the middle of the crowd, landing on the podium. "Welcome, everyone. Today we celebrate the anniversary of humans' arrival on the Myriad of Worlds. It's been 1267 years since the fateful day that brought millions of humans to New Earth. Throughout all of the hardships and dangers, we humans have come far in that time. But today is not the day to celebrate all we have gained and achieved, but to remember and honor our origins and those that sacrificed their lives for us, so we can enjoy the opportunities we have today." Holding up an ale glass to the crowd, he yelled, "To Earthlings!" "To Earthlings!" everyone yelled, each holding up a fist or glass. Kai smiled lightly. He felt pride as the people around him unknowingly honored him. His smile turned to a frown as he remembered that he was villainized, and none of these people were probably celebrating his accomplishments and sacrifices. The mood was jubilant as everyone was rowdy and loud. Jacob and Ariel looked as if they were struggling a bit. They were not used to densely packed crowds and noises this loud. It was a very different experience from the quiet village they had grown up in all their lives. Recognizing a person who had been behind the group for some time, Kai moved up between the two lovebirds and put his arm around their shoulders. "Nicholas, we have a man that has been following us for some time," he whispered very quietly. "I know. It's one of the royal guards. Otherwise, they wouldn't let me walk around out here today," he whispered back. "Royal guard? Are you royalty?" Lydia's eyes shined brightly. "Lydia, keep your voice down." Kai kicked the back of her shoe. "Hey, don't kick me," she growled. She tried to kick him back, but he deftly dodged and walked back to his younger siblings. Grabbing Ariel's hand, Kai signaled to the others to follow as he pulled her past some people who had crowded them into the square after they had arrived. "What now?" Lydia asked. A small whimper came from Akane, still trapped in Ariel's arms. "Food?" questioned Ariel. Lydia looked to Kai and the others, who just shrugged or nodded affirmation. "Okay, let's get some food." They walked down to the food vendor section. There were plenty of restaurants open, but none of the group wanted to sit down and wait inside. They moved around checking out the abundance of options, but no one could agree on anything. Getting frustrated at their lack of choice, Akane barked out a few times. "Akane says she's tired of waiting, so she is going to pick," Ariel interpreted. Promptly jumping out of her hands, Akane began guiding the group through the crowd with a destination in mind. Nicholas leaned towards Kai. Can she really understand the fox? Kai shrugged. Akane isn't difficult to understand. She is motivated by a love of food, sleep, and more food. Her vocabulary is probably limited to those subjects, Kai joked. Akane finally narrowed in on one stall with a small line. Above the wooden stall was a sign reading, "Fried chicken." Kai knew what chicken was. The animal had been brought over by some individuals when they arrived in the Myriad of Worlds. But to his knowledge, he never had it fried before. It soon became their turn as the line moved quickly. Two men manned the stall, one at the front, the other at the back. They both wore a headband around their foreheads with their sleeves rolled up. The person behind was cooking as he dunked breaded lumps of chicken into the oil. Right after dumping, his hand was flared up with fire, aimed underneath the metal containers holding the oil. It bubbled until he ladled the now browned chicken out of the oil. "Good day, ladies and gents. What can I interest you in?" The menu below the window only had 3 choices. The options were fried chicken wings, fried chicken sandwich with pickles, or fried chicken and waffles. Kai had no idea what any of those tasted like, but if he was going purely off the smell, he had found himself in the divine realm of food gods. "Can I get 4 of each item?" Ariel told the front man. "Oh, and 1 more chicken and waffles." "Coming right up," the man excitedly said. His eyes gleamed at the prospect of a big customer order. Turning to the rest of the group, "Okay, I ordered for Akane and me. What are you guys getting?" Lydia sighed, whereas Kai just chuckled. After everyone ordered, there was a small debate about who would pay, with Nicholas insisting since. Kai assumed he was trying to get on his sister's good side by offering, but he was firmly rejected when instead Akan jumped onto the counter and paid for everyone. Coins began appearing magically from thin air in front of her. It had given the man at the front a small scare, but his eyes lit up when he saw the miraculous appearance of a currency-producing fox. Everyone nearby seemed to take note of Akani's miraculous ability to produce coins without a visible item. When everyone received their food, they sat down at a bench nearby that had been set up for the event. An explosion of flavors hit Kai's mouth on the first bite. The crispy, crunchy texture, combined with the juicy, tender chicken, literally rocked his world. The fried chicken had turned out to be one of the best-tasting meals he had ever had. He was almost tempted to get in line again, but it had grown substantially since they had been eating. After eating, the group wandered around enjoying the sights to pass the time. They came across something called a circus. During the circus, they had what looked like tamed monsters performing tricks and making cool magical effects. Kai thought it was a bit lackluster, but his younger siblings seemed to enjoy the show. "What should we do now?" Nicholas asked the group. "I don't know. There is something called a fireworks show tonight, but that won't happen until the light enchantments turn off," Lydia said, reading a pamphlet. "Why don't we head over to the academy and see the fireworks?" Nicholas purposed. "Why the academy?" Kai asked. "Fireworks are best enjoyed from dark, quiet places. There is too much going on here to really enjoy them." With Nicholas's influence, the group entered the quiet academy grounds easily. With nobody around to bother them, Nicholas led the group to an empty small hill on the far side of the training grounds. Kai sat with his two younger siblings, while Lydia and Nicholas cozied up to each other. The fireworks turned out to be fire magic being shot into the sky. Shapes and animals were formed by the fire and would move around, telling a tale, as if in a play. It had been a memorable day that had let Kai forget his troubles just for one day.